5 disturbing true trespassing horror stories. This happened about 4 years ago when I was living alone in a small rental house just outside of Portland. It wasn't anything fancy, just a 2-bedroom place with a fenced-in backyard and a detached garage. The neighborhood was quiet, mostly older couples and a few young families. I felt safe there, which is probably why I got so comfortable leaving my back door unlocked during the day. I know. Stupid decision. But I was home most of the time, and I liked being able to step out into the yard without fumbling for keys. Plus, the fence gave me a false sense of security. If someone wanted to get in, they'd have to climb over it first, and I figured I'd hear that. One Thursday afternoon, I was working from home, sitting at my desk in the spare bedroom I'd converted into an office. I had headphones on, listening to music while I typed up some reports. I'd been at it for maybe 2 hours when I decided I needed a break. I got up, stretched, and walked into the kitchen to grab a snack. That's when I noticed it. The back door was wide open, not just unlocked, open. I froze. I specifically remembered closing it earlier that morning after letting my cat out. I always closed it. The screen door was shut, but the main door was pushed all the way back against the wall. My first thought was that maybe the wind had blown it open. But there was no wind that day. It was completely still outside. Then I noticed something else. Muddy footprints on the kitchen floor. Boot prints, maybe size 10 or 11. Definitely not mine. They came in through the back door, tracked across the kitchen tile, and disappeared into the hallway. My stomach dropped. Someone had been in my house, or worse, someone was still in my house. I grabbed my phone and immediately called 911. I didn't even wait for them to finish asking questions. I just blurted out that someone had broken into my house and I didn't know if they were still inside. The dispatcher told me to leave the house immediately and wait outside for the police. I didn't need to be told twice. I bolted out the front door and stood on the sidewalk, watching my house like it was about to explode. The police showed up maybe 10 minutes later. 2 officers went inside while a third stayed with me, asking questions about what I had seen. They cleared the house room by room, and after what felt like forever, one of them came back out and told me it was safe. No one was inside. But here's the part that still freaks me out. When they checked my bedroom, they found my laptop sitting open on the bed. I hadn't touched it all day. It had been on my desk in the office. Someone had moved it. They also found my jewelry box open, but nothing was missing. My TV was still there. My wallet was still on the counter. Nothing had been taken. The officer said it looked like whoever it was had been interrupted. Maybe they heard me get up from my desk and bolted. Or maybe they were looking for something specific and didn't find it. Either way, they were gone by the time I walked into the kitchen. The police dusted for prints but didn't find anything useful. They told me to get better locks, install a security system, and for the love of God, stop leaving my doors unlocked. I took their advice. I installed cameras, got a deadbolt, and started obsessively checking every door and window before bed. But the thing that messed me up the most was the timing. Whoever it was had been in my house while I was home. They'd walked right past the room I was in. If I hadn't gotten up when I did, would they have come into the office? Would they have confronted me? I still think about that sometimes. And every once in a while, I'll be sitting at my desk and I'll get this feeling, like someone's watching me. I'll turn around, and of course, no one's there. But the feeling doesn't go away. I ended up moving out of that place about 6 months later. not because I was forced to, but because I just couldn't shake the paranoia. Every creak, every shadow, every time the wind blew a little too hard, I was convinced someone was trying to get in again. It's funny how one incident can completely ruin a place for you. I loved that house before that day. After, I couldn't get out fast enough. This one happened to my friend's family back in 2015. They live in a pretty rural part of upstate New York, the kind of place where your nearest neighbor is a quarter-mile away and you can't see their house through the trees. It's peaceful, but it's also isolated. And isolation can be a double-edged sword. My friend, let's call him Aaron, was 16 at the time. He lived with his parents and his younger sister in a 2-story farmhouse that had been in his family for generations. The property was huge, maybe 20 acres, with a long gravel driveway that wound through the woods before opening up to the house. One night in late September, Aaron's parents went out to dinner for their anniversary. They left Aaron in charge, which meant he and his sister had the house to themselves for a few hours. They ordered pizza, watched a movie, typical sibling hangout stuff. Around 9:30, Aaron's sister went upstairs to bed. Aaron stayed up a little longer, playing video games in the living room. The TV was loud, and he had the lights off because he liked the atmosphere. He was completely zoned in, not paying attention to anything else. Then the power went out. The whole house went dark. The TV shut off mid-game, and suddenly it was dead silent except for the sound of Aaron's own breathing. He sat there for a second, waiting for his eyes to adjust. And then he heard it. Footsteps. On the front porch. Slow, deliberate footsteps, like someone was pacing back and forth. Aaron's first thought was that his parents had come home early and were messing with him. But then he remembered they'd taken his mom's car, and he hadn't heard a car pull up. The driveway was gravel. You couldn't drive up to the house without making noise. He got up and walked over to the front window, trying to peek through the curtains without being seen. The porch light was out because of the power outage, so he couldn't see much. But he could see a shape. A person, standing near the front door, just standing there. Aaron's heart started racing. He grabbed his phone and called his dad. No answer. He tried his mom. No answer. He thought about calling 911, but he wasn't sure if he was overreacting. Maybe it was a neighbor who needed help. Maybe their car had broken down or something. So he did something incredibly stupid. He opened the front door. The second he did, the person on the porch turned and looked at him. It was a man, maybe in his 40s, wearing a dirty jacket and jeans. His face was partially obscured by a baseball cap, but Aaron could see his eyes. They were wide, almost manic, and he had this unsettling grin on his face. The man didn't say anything. He just stared at Aaron for what felt like an eternity. Then, without a word, he turned and walked off the porch, heading toward the tree line. Aaron slammed the door and locked it. He ran upstairs, woke up his sister, and told her to lock herself in her room. Then he called 911. The dispatcher told him to stay inside and keep the doors locked. Police were on their way, but given how far out they lived, it would be at least 20 minutes before anyone arrived. Aaron sat in the upstairs hallway with a baseball bat, listening. He could hear movement outside, footsteps circling the house. At one point, he heard someone try the back door handle. Then, a window on the first floor. Whoever it was, they were trying to get in. When the police finally arrived, they searched the property but didn't find anyone. They did find footprints in the mud near the back door and some scratches on one of the window frames, like someone had tried to pry it open. The officer told Aaron's family that it was likely someone scoping out the house, possibly planning to rob it. The power outage might have been a coincidence, or it might have been intentional. Either way, they recommended installing security lights and cameras. Aaron's dad did exactly that. They also got a dog, a big German shepherd that barks at anything that moves. But Aaron never felt safe in that house again. He told me that for months afterward, he'd lie in bed at night and listen for footsteps. He'd imagine that man standing on the porch, grinning at him through the dark. The worst part? They never found out who it was. No arrests were made. No one in the area reported seeing anyone suspicious. Whoever that guy was, he just vanished. And for all Aaron knows, he's still out there. This story comes from a woman I used to work with. She's in her 50s now, but this happened when she was in her late 20s, living alone in an apartment in downtown Chicago. It was a decent building, nothing too fancy, but it had a doorman and security, so she felt relatively safe. Her apartment was on the 4th floor, and she'd lived there for about a year without any issues. One night, she came home from work around 10 p.m. She took the elevator up, unlocked her door, and stepped inside. Everything seemed normal. She tossed her keys on the counter, kicked off her shoes, and headed to the kitchen to make dinner. While she was cooking, she noticed something odd. Her bedroom door was closed. She always left it open, always. It was just a habit she had. She walked over and opened the door, and that's when she saw him. A man was standing in her closet, not hiding, not crouched down, just standing there, facing the wall, completely still. She screamed. The man turned around and looked at her. He was young, maybe early 20s, with greasy hair and a blank expression on his face. He didn't say anything. He didn't move. He just stared at her. She ran. She didn't even think about it. She just bolted out of the apartment and down the stairs, screaming for help. The doorman heard her and called the police. When they arrived, they went up to her apartment and found the man still standing in the closet. He didn't resist when they pulled him out. He didn't fight. He just went with them quietly, like he was in a trance. Turns out, he was a maintenance worker for the building. He had a master key that gave him access to every unit. He'd been using it to enter apartments when residents weren't home. Sometimes he'd steal things. Other times, he'd just walk around, touch their belongings, go through their drawers. And sometimes, if he lost track of time, he'd still be there when they came home. The police searched his own apartment and found a collection of items he'd stolen from various units. Jewelry, underwear, photographs, personal items. It was disturbing. He was arrested and charged with multiple counts of burglary and trespassing. My co-worker pressed charges, obviously. But the damage was done. She couldn't stay in that apartment anymore. Every time she walked into her bedroom, she'd picture him standing there in her closet. She moved out within a month. She told me the worst part wasn't even the fact that he'd been in her apartment. It was the realization that he could have been doing it for weeks, maybe months, and she never knew. How many times had he been in there while she was at work? How many times had he touched her things, gone through her stuff, stood in her room? The thought of it made her sick. And the scariest part? He never gave a clear reason for why he did it. During his trial, his lawyer tried to argue that he had some kind of mental illness, that he didn't understand what he was doing was wrong. But my coworker didn't buy it. She said when he looked at her that night, there was something behind his eyes, something aware. He knew exactly what he was doing. She just happened to catch him. This one's from a guy I went to college with. He was living in an off-campus house with 3 other roommates, all guys, all in their early 20s. The house was old, kind of run down, but it was cheap and close to campus, so they didn't complain. It had a big backyard, a basement, and a detached garage that none of them ever used because it was full of junk left behind by previous tenants. One semester, 2 of his roommates went home for spring break, leaving just him and one other guy in the house. They figured it'd be a quiet week. They'd catch up on schoolwork, play video games, maybe throw a small party or two, normal college stuff. A few days into the break, my friend, let's call him Mike, started noticing things were off. Small things at first. A window in the basement that he was sure he'd closed was now open. A door that was usually locked was unlocked. Food missing from the fridge. He mentioned it to his roommate, but they both just chalked it up to forgetfulness. They'd been smoking a lot of weed that week, so their memories weren't exactly sharp. Then one night, Mike woke up around 3 a.m. to use the bathroom. As he was walking down the hallway, he heard a noise coming from downstairs. A shuffling sound, like someone was moving around in the kitchen. He figured his roommate was getting a snack, so he didn't think much of it. But when he passed his roommate's room, he saw the door was closed and the lights were off. He was asleep. Mike's stomach dropped. If his roommate was asleep, then who was in the kitchen? He crept down the stairs as quietly as he could, his heart pounding. When he reached the bottom, he peeked around the corner into the kitchen. There was a man standing in front of the open fridge, eating leftovers straight out of a container. He was filthy, wearing torn clothes and old boots. He looked homeless. Mike didn't know what to do. Part of him wanted to confront the guy, but part of him was terrified. This wasn't just some drunk college kid who wandered into the wrong house. This was a grown man, and Mike had no idea if he was dangerous. He slowly backed up the stairs, went to his roommate's room, and woke him up. They called the police and locked themselves in the bedroom until help arrived. When the cops got there, they found the man still in the kitchen. He didn't resist. He didn't even seem surprised. He just put his hands up and let them cuff him. Turns out, he'd been living in their garage for at least a week, maybe longer. He'd been sneaking into the house at night when they were asleep, eating their food, using their bathroom, and then going back to the garage before they woke up. The cops found a makeshift bed in there, along with some of their belongings he'd taken. A blanket, a pillow, a jacket. The guy told the police he didn't mean any harm. Said he was just trying to stay warm and needed a place to sleep. He claimed he didn't think anyone would notice. Mike and his roommate were livid. They felt violated. This guy had been living in their space, eating their food, walking around their house while they slept. And they had no idea. The police arrested him for trespassing and burglary. But Mike said the worst part was the paranoia that followed. For the rest of the semester, he couldn't sleep. He'd lie awake at night, listening for sounds, convinced someone else was in the house. They changed all the locks, installed a deadbolt on the garage, and started keeping the basement door locked at all times. But the damage was done. Mike told me he moved out as soon as the lease was up. He couldn't handle living there anymore. And honestly, I don't blame him. The idea that someone could be living in your house without you knowing is one of the most terrifying things I can imagine. This last one is from a family friend who lives in a rural part of Montana. She and her husband bought a cabin on a few acres of land, planning to use it as a weekend getaway. It was isolated, surrounded by forest, with the nearest town about 20 miles away. Perfect for getting away from the noise of everyday life. They'd been using the cabin for about a year when they started noticing strange things. Footprints in the snow that didn't belong to them. Tire tracks on the property that appeared overnight. At one point, they found a window on the back of the cabin had been forced open, but nothing inside was missing. They reported it to the local sheriff, but there wasn't much he could do. He said it was probably just kids messing around or maybe hunters passing through. He told them to keep an eye out and call if anything else happened. A few months later, they decided to spend a long weekend at the cabin. It was winter, and they wanted to enjoy the snow. They arrived Friday evening, unloaded their stuff, and settled in for the night. Everything seemed fine. Saturday morning, they woke up and decided to go for a hike. They locked up the cabin and headed into the woods. They were gone for maybe 3 hours. When they got back, they immediately knew something was wrong. The front door was open. Not broken, just open, like someone had unlocked it and walked right in. They cautiously stepped inside and found the place had been ransacked. Drawers were pulled open, cabinets were emptied, furniture was moved. But again, nothing seemed to be missing. Whoever had been there wasn't looking to steal. They were looking for something specific. The scariest part? They found muddy footprints leading from the front door to the back bedroom. And in the bedroom, they found something that made their blood run cold. Someone had been sleeping in their bed. The covers were pulled back, the pillow had an indentation, and there were crumbs on the nightstand, like someone had been eating there. Her husband called the sheriff immediately. When he arrived, he searched the property but didn't find anyone. He did find more footprints leading into the woods behind the cabin, but the trail went cold after a few hundred yards. The sheriff suspected it was someone who knew the area well, possibly a local who'd been using the cabin when they weren't there. He recommended they install cameras and maybe consider staying somewhere else until they figured out who it was. They took his advice. They set up trail cameras around the property and didn't come back to the cabin for a few weeks. When they finally checked the footage, they were horrified. The cameras had captured a man entering the cabin multiple times, always at night, always when they weren't there. He'd walk in through the back door, make himself at home, eat their food, sleep in their bed, and leave before morning. In one clip, he was sitting on their couch, watching their TV, like he owned the place. They turned the footage over to the sheriff, who identified the man as a drifter who'd been causing problems in the area for months. He was eventually arrested for trespassing and burglary, but my friend and her husband sold the cabin shortly after. They couldn't stand the thought of going back there. The idea that someone had been treating their property like his own personal hideout was too much. And the worst part? They have no idea how long it had been going on before they caught him. Months, years. The thought of it still makes them sick. So here's my question for you. If you came home and found someone in your house, what would you do? Would you confront them, or would you run? Honestly, I think I'd freeze. I'd like to say I'd be brave and handle it, but in reality, I'd probably just stand there in shock. Leave your answer in the comments. I want to know how you'd react, and if you made it this far, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We've got more terrifying stories coming your way, and trust me, you don't want to miss what we've got lined up next. All right, that's it for today. Lock your doors, check your windows, and stay safe out there.